The massive crystal displays in the Galactic Council's war room lit up with a blue glow. Senior Analyst Crick's tall, four-fingered hands moved quickly across the control panel, bringing up the latest footage from the human space exercises. His scaled skin reflected the light as he turned to address the 15 council members seated around the circular table. "Honored council members," Crickstall said, his translator converting his clicks and whistles into standard galactic common. "What you are about to see will change everything we thought we knew about the humans." In the back of the room, Laura Mitchell stood quietly, her diplomatic uniform crisp and neat. As humanity's first representative to the Galactic Council, she had learned to keep her face neutral, even when her heart raced with pride. She watched as the alien delegates shifted in their seats, some utilizing anti-gravity platforms, others perched on specialized supports designed for their unique body structures. The hologram flickered to life in the center of the room. It showed the U.S. Dauntless, one of Earth's newest ships, performing what looked like simple maneuvers in deep space. Captain Peter Howard's vessel moved with grace that seemed impossible for its size. "Please observe carefully," Crickstall said, zooming in on the ship's engines. This recording was taken 3 standard days ago in the Artemis sector. The Dauntless suddenly vanished from its position. Several council members leaned forward, their various sensory organs focused intently on the display. A second later, the ship reappeared 50,000 kilometers away, with no sign of the usual space distortion that accompanied faster-than-light travel. "Impossible," rumbled Council Member Zickstall, his crystalline body vibrating with emotion. There was no fold signature, no wave pattern, no quantum wake. Ships cannot move that way. Laura smiled slightly. She had been waiting for this moment for weeks. The humans had deliberately kept some of their more advanced capabilities under wraps during the initial contact period. Now was the time to show their true potential. The recording continued. The Dauntless performed a series of jumps, each one defying the known laws of physics. No energy signature preceded the movements. No spatial distortion followed them. The ship simply ceased to be in one location and existed in another. "Our sensors indicate," Crickstall continued, his voice trembling slightly, "that the human vessel is not actually moving through space. It's shifting between dimensional planes to traverse distance." A low murmur filled the room. The Granth representative, a being made of pure energy contained within a specialized field, pulsed rapidly with agitation. "This technology was theoretical. We deemed it impossible after 3 centuries of research." Laura stepped forward, her footsteps echoing in the suddenly quiet chamber. "If I may, honored council," she asked, following proper protocol. The council chair, a towering insectoid named Vextera, nodded her antenna in permission. "What you're seeing is what we call the dimensional slip drive," Laura explained, keeping her voice calm and clear. "It's been in development for approximately 20 Earth years. This particular test was designed to demonstrate its capabilities to the Council." 20 years. The Zrylaxian representative's tentacles writhed in disbelief. "Your species only achieved spaceflight a century ago. This level of advancement is remarkable, unexpected," Laura supplied with a gentle smile. "Humanity has always had a talent for doing the impossible." Captain Howard's voice came through the recording, steady and professional. "Dauntless to control. Phase 3 test complete. Dimensional stability at 100%. No quantum bleed-through detected." The council members watched as the ship performed one final maneuver, slipping between dimensions to reappear precisely 1 meter from its starting position. The level of control was unprecedented. "There's more," Crickstall said, his hand shaking slightly as he brought up another set of readings. "During these jumps, our sensors detected no energy expenditure." The room erupted in chaos. Several council members began speaking at once, their translators struggling to keep up with the overlapping voices. "No energy cost. That violates conservation laws. How is this possible? What else are they hiding?" Laura waited patiently for the commotion to settle. The humans had expected this reaction. After all, They had just demonstrated technology that the galaxy's oldest civilizations had deemed impossible. Council Chair Vexterra raised all four of her arms, calling for silence. Representative Mitchell, she said, her compound eyes fixed on Laura, your species has been part of the galactic community for less than one standard year. Yet you possess technology that our finest minds claimed could not exist. How do you explain this? Laura took a deep breath. This was the moment to be diplomatic yet firm. Honored Chair, humanity has always been driven by necessity and curiosity. When our scientists were told something was impossible, they took it as a challenge, not a limitation. The dimensional slip drive is just one example of our approach to problem solving. And what other examples might we expect to see? Asked the Zrylaxian, their voice carrying a hint of worry. That, Laura replied with a measured smile, is what the rest of this presentation will cover. Captain Howard and the Dauntless were demonstrating our basic transportation technology. We haven't even begun to show you our defensive capabilities. The room fell silent again, but this time the silence carried a different weight. It was the silence of a galaxy realizing that everything they thought they knew about the cosmic order was about to change. Crickstall cleared his throat, or what passed for one in his species. Shall we continue with the weapons demonstration footage? The council members looked at each other, then at Laura, who stood calmly waiting. They were beginning to understand that humans weren't just another emerging spacefaring race. They were something entirely new, and possibly a little frightening. Please proceed, Council Chair Vexterra said finally, her antenna twitching with what might have been excitement or anxiety. Show us what else humanity has achieved. As Crickstall prepared the next set of recordings, Laura allowed herself a slightly bigger smile. The real surprises were yet to come, and she couldn't wait to see their reactions to what humanity had accomplished with their defensive systems. After all, if they thought the dimensional slip drive was impressive, wait until they saw what happened when humans actually tried to show off. Dr. Susan Clark adjusted her glasses and looked around the war room. The quantum physicist hadn't expected to spend her Tuesday morning explaining human technology to a group of aliens, but here she was. The council members stared at her with various types of eyes, sensory organs, and scanning devices. Let me begin with the basics, she said, touching her tablet to bring up a new hologram. What you saw earlier with the dimensional slip drive isn't actually teleportation. It's something much simpler. The Zrylaxian representative's tentacles curled in confusion. Simpler than teleportation. Your ship disappeared and reappeared instantly. Susan smiled. Yes, because we stopped trying to fight against space itself. While your civilizations focused on bending space or creating wormholes, we looked at the problem differently. We simply stepped sideways. Commander Richard Baker, standing next to her in his Space Force uniform, pressed a button. A new simulation appeared in the center of the room, showing multiple layers of reality stacked like sheets of paper. Think of space like a book, Susan continued, using her hands to gesture at the display. Most faster-than-light travel tries to fold the page to connect 2 points. We instead slip between the pages entirely. The council members watched as a tiny ship in the simulation moved between the layers, bypassing normal space entirely. Several of them made sounds their translators didn't even try to convert. Impossible, said the Granth representative, their energy form flickering rapidly. The energy requirements alone would be massive if we were forcing our way through, Richard interrupted politely. But we're not. We found natural points where the barriers between dimensions are thinner. We just needed to learn how to spot them and use them. Laura Mitchell, still standing at her position near the back, watched with pride as the aliens tried to process this information. Humanity had come so far in such a short time, and now they were teaching physics to species that had been traveling the stars before humans invented the wheel. Susan brought up another display, this one showing the development timeline of human space technology. We achieved our first faster-than-light travel just 50 years ago. The dimensional slip technology was developed in the last 20 years, as Ms. Mitchell mentioned earlier. 20 years. The crystalline form of Council Member Zixtal vibrated in disbelief. Our records show your species only recently split the atom. How did you advance so quickly? Richard stepped forward. That's actually an interesting story. We discovered the principles behind dimensional slipping by accident. A laboratory accident in 2090 showed us that reality was much more flexible than we thought. Instead of ignoring the data because it didn't fit our theories, we changed our theories. The hologram shifted to show the history of human space exploration, starting with simple chemical rockets, moving through ion drives, fusion engines, and finally to their current technology. Each step seemed to happen faster than the last. Your species appears to develop exponentially, Krixtal observed, his scaled fingers moving across his datapad. Each breakthrough leads to 3 more, then 9, then 27. That's the beauty of competitive development, Susan explained. We don't have a single research path or a unified scientific body. We have thousands of teams, companies, and organizations all working on the same problems in different ways. When one group makes a breakthrough, everyone builds on it. The council chair's antenna twitched. This seems chaotic. It is, Laura spoke up from the back. But chaos can be productive. Humanity thrives on it. Susan nodded in agreement and brought up new data. Let me show you how we solved the energy problem. Traditional physics said we needed massive amounts of power to breach dimensional barriers. But we found something interesting about the nature of reality itself. A hologram changed to show complex quantum equations, but Susan quickly replaced them with a simpler visual model. Imagine reality as a pond, she said. Most species try to make big waves to get from one place to another. We found out how to slip between the ripples instead. Richard added, our ships don't fight against physics. They work with it. The energy cost is minimal because we're using natural phenomena that already exist. The Granth representative pulsed rapidly. But the calculations required, the precision needed, are handled by our quantum computers, Susan finished. Another technology we developed out of necessity. When you're trying to slip between dimensions, you need extremely precise calculations. She brought up footage of the computer cores that powered the dimensional slip technology. The crystalline matrices pulsed with inner light, processing calculations faster than any conventional computer could manage. These computers, Richard explained, can map the quantum landscape around our ships in real time. They find the natural weak points between dimensions and calculate the safest path through them. It's like finding the doors that are already there instead of trying to make new ones. The council members were silent for a long moment, processing this information. Finally, the Zrylaxian spoke again. This technology, it changes everything we thought we knew about space travel. That's not all it changes, Susan said, her expression serious. The same principles that let us slip between dimensions have other applications, military applications. The room grew even quieter. Laura watched as the alien representatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. They had just begun to grasp the implications of human technology. Commander Baker will now show you some footage from our defensive systems testing, Susan continued. What you're about to see might seem impossible, but I assure you, it's all based on the same principles I just explained. Richard stepped forward again, ready to begin the next part of the presentation. What happens, he asked rhetorically, when you apply dimensional slipping technology to weapons and shields? The results are interesting. The hologram shifted once more, showing a human battleship facing an asteroid field. What happened next would change the Council's understanding of warfare forever. But that was exactly why humanity had decided to reveal these capabilities now. Sometimes the best way to keep the peace was to show exactly why starting a war would be a very, very bad idea. Before we continue, Laura said from her position, I want to remind the Council that Earth is committed to peaceful cooperation. Everything we're showing you today is purely defensive technology. We believe in being prepared, but we have no hostile intentions. The Council members nodded, but their attention was fixed on the hologram as Richard began the weapons demonstration. Sometimes, Susan thought, the best way to make friends was to make sure they understood exactly how dangerous you could be if pushed. And humanity was about to show just how dangerous they could be indeed. Chief Engineer Mary Patterson walked to the center of the war room, her boots making soft sounds on the polished floor. She nodded to Dr. Clark and Commander Baker as they took their seats, then faced the council with a confident smile. "Now that you understand how we move through space," Mary said, "let me show you how we control gravity." She pressed a small device on her wrist. In the center of the room, a metal sphere about the size of a basketball appeared. It floated perfectly still in the air. "This is a standard gravity control unit," she explained. "The kind we use on all our ships. Nothing special about it." The Srilaxian representative's tentacles waved with interest. Their species was known for having the most advanced gravity technology in the galaxy. "Our scans show no energy signature," they said. "How is it floating?" Mary's smile grew wider. "It's not floating. It's falling. Just not in the direction you'd expect." She pressed another button on her wrist controller. The sphere began to move in complex patterns, spinning and weaving through the air like a dancer. The council members watched with growing amazement as it performed maneuvers that should have been impossible. "We don't fight against gravity," Mary continued. "Just like we don't fight against space when we travel. We simply change how it affects us." Lieutenant John Cooper stepped forward from his position near the door. He carried what looked like a simple metal cube in his hands. "This technology was born from necessity," he said. "When we first started building space stations, we needed better ways to control gravity." The cube in his hand suddenly split apart, its pieces floating in a complex pattern. Each piece moved independently, but they all worked together like parts of a dance. "Watch carefully," John said. He pressed a button on his own controller. The pieces of the cube began to orbit each other, moving faster and faster. The council members leaned forward, their various sensory organs focused intently on the display. "Now," Mary said, "watch what happens when we combine the two demonstrations." The metal sphere and the cube pieces began to interact. They moved around each other in impossible ways, sometimes seeming to pass through one another. But there was no collision, no energy discharge, no sign of any force controlling them. "Impossible," the Granth representative pulsed brightly. "The gravitational calculations alone would require a very advanced computer," John finished for them. "Which we have. The same quantum computers that guide our ships through dimensional spaces control these devices." Mary gestured, and both demonstrations froze in midair. "Every human ship, from the smallest scout to our largest battleships, uses this technology. It lets us move in ways that conventional engines can't match." In the back of the room, Laura Mitchell watched as the Srilaxian representative's tentacles twisted in what she had learned was a sign of distress. Their species had prided themselves on their mastery of gravity for thousands of years. Now they were watching humans casually demonstrate technology that made their best efforts look primitive. "But that's not the most impressive part," Mary continued. She pressed another series of commands into her wrist controller. The sphere and cube pieces began to glow softly. "What you're seeing now is how we use gravity control in combat situations." The demonstrations moved again, but this time they created complex patterns of gravitational force. Sensors around the room began to light up as they detected the changes in space itself. "Each ship in our fleet can generate its own gravitational field," John explained. "Not just for artificial gravity inside the ship, but as a weapon and shield." He touched his own controller, and a hologram appeared showing the human battleship. "When we're attacked, we don't just rely on energy shields. We can curve space around our ships, redirect enemy fire, or even create gravity wells that trap hostile vessels." The council chamber grew very quiet. The implications were clear. Human ships could not only move in ways that defied conventional physics, but they could also control the very fabric of space around them. "This technology," Mary added, "was developed as a direct response to our survival instinct. Humans have always needed to adapt quickly to new threats. So we learned to control our environment instead of just defending against it. Laura stepped forward now, her diplomatic training telling her it was time to reassure the Council. As mentioned before, Earth remains committed to peaceful cooperation. These capabilities were developed for defense, not conquest. The Council chair's antenna twitched rapidly. Yet you choose to reveal them now. Why? Honesty, Laura replied simply. We believe the best way to maintain peace is to be clear about our capabilities. No misunderstandings, no hidden surprises. Mary nodded in agreement and brought up new holographic displays. Let me show you how this technology works in practice. This footage is from a recent training exercise. The hologram showed 3 human ships moving through an asteroid field. But they weren't avoiding the asteroids. They were controlling them, creating a complex dance of rock and metal through space. Each ship, John explained, can manipulate gravity in a sphere about 10,000 kilometers across. When ships work together, they can affect even larger areas. The Council members watched as the ships demonstrated their control, moving asteroids with precision that seemed impossible. No energy beams, no visible forces, just pure control over gravity itself. And this, Mary said with a hint of pride, is just one of our basic capabilities. We haven't even shown you how we combine this technology with our dimensional slip drives. The room erupted in surprised murmurs. The idea that humans had found a way to combine these already impossible technologies was almost too much to process. Laura watched from her position as the Council members tried to grasp the implications. She knew what was coming next would shock them even more. The gravity control demonstrations were impressive, but they were just the beginning. Shall we continue? Mary asked, her hand hovering over her controller. There's much more to show you. The Council chair looked around the room, noting the mixture of fear and fascination on her fellow members' faces. Please proceed, she said finally. Show us what else humanity has achieved. Mary smiled and began the next demonstration. It was time to show the galaxy just how far humans had come and how far they could still go. After all, every technology they'd shown so far was already considered outdated by Earth's standards. The real breakthroughs were still classified. But perhaps, if this meeting went well, that would change soon. Admiral William Grant stood at the center of the war room, his weathered face illuminated by the holographic displays. He'd spent 30 years in the Space Force, but this was perhaps his most important briefing yet. Members of the Council, he began, his voice calm but commanding. You've seen our technology. Now let me explain why we developed it this way. The hologram shifted to show Earth's history of warfare. From ancient battles to modern space combat, the display highlighted humanity's constant drive to innovate. Humans, the Admiral continued, learn best under pressure. Every major war in our history pushed us to create new technologies, new strategies, new ways of thinking. Security Officer Alice Newman stepped forward, her dark uniform a stark contrast to the Admiral's ceremonial white. What you might find most interesting, she said, is how we approached the problem of defense. The hologram changed to show a human battleship under attack. Energy weapons from multiple directions struck the vessel, but something strange happened. The attacks didn't just bounce off shields. They changed direction, split apart, or simply vanished. Our shield systems, Alice explained, don't just block attacks. They adapt to them. The Zrylaxian representative's tentacles coiled tightly. Adapt? You mean they can change their properties during battle? Admiral Grant nodded. Every shot that hits our shields teaches them something new. The more you attack, the stronger they become. He pressed a control, and the hologram showed multiple examples of human ships learning from different types of weapons. Energy beams, plasma bolts, particle streams. Each attack was analyzed and countered in real time. But that's impossible. The Granth representative pulsed rapidly. Shield harmonics can't be adjusted that quickly. Alice smiled. They can if you use quantum computing and dimensional technology together. Our shields don't just protect the ship, they protect the space around it. Laura Mitchell watched from her position as the council members tried to process this information. She saw the moment when they realized what this meant. Human ships were practically invulnerable to repeated attacks. "Let me demonstrate," Admiral Grant said. He brought up footage from a recent training exercise. The hologram showed 5 human ships facing off against a field of automated drones. The drones fired every type of weapon known to the galaxy. The first few hits struck the human shields with visible impact. But then something changed. Each subsequent attack had less and less effect. By the end of the exercise, the most powerful weapons simply curved around the human ships, their energy redirected harmlessly into space. "Our research teams," Alice explained, "work independently but share all defensive breakthroughs. Every discovery by one ship is automatically transmitted to the entire fleet." The Admiral nodded. "This decentralized approach means we can adapt to new threats faster than any centralized system. Each ship is both a warrior and a teacher." He brought up another display, this one showing the growth of human space defense capabilities over just the past decade. The curve rose almost vertically. "We don't believe in standing still," Alice added. "Every ship in our fleet is constantly learning, constantly improving. The defenses you see today will be obsolete by next month." The council chamber fell silent. The implications were staggering. Not only were human ships incredibly advanced, but they were also getting better all the time. "But surely," the Zrylaxian representative said, their voice trembling slightly, "this level of advancement requires enormous resources." Admiral Grant shook his head. "That's another thing we'd like to explain. Our approach to resource management is different." The hologram changed again, showing human manufacturing facilities. But these weren't the massive factories the council members expected. Instead, they saw smaller, more efficient operations scattered across multiple locations. "We don't centralize our production," Alice explained. "Each facility operates independently, competing with others to create better solutions. The best designs are shared and improved upon. Competition breeds innovation," the Admiral added. "When we faced the challenge of space defense, we didn't assign it to a single research team. We challenged everyone to solve it. Thousands of teams working on thousands of different approaches." Laura stepped forward now, sensing the growing unease in the room. "What Admiral Grant and Officer Newman are showing you," she said diplomatically, "is not meant to frighten you. We're demonstrating our capabilities so you understand why we value peaceful cooperation so highly." "Because war would be pointless," the council chair said quietly, her antenna drooping slightly. "Exactly," Admiral Grant confirmed. "Our defensive capabilities make conflict unnecessary. We prefer to focus our efforts on exploration and advancement." Alice brought up one final display. "This is our current rate of technological progress," she said, pointing to a steeply rising line. "And this," she added another line that rose even more sharply, "is our projected advancement over the next 5 years." The council members stared at the display in silence. The second line rose almost vertically, suggesting improvements at a rate that seemed impossible. "How?" the Grant representative pulsed weakly. "How can you advance so quickly?" Admiral Grant's expression softened slightly. "Because we never stop learning. Every challenge makes us stronger. Every problem leads to new solutions. It's who we are." Laura watched as the council members looked at each other, their various expressions and gestures conveying a mixture of awe and concern. They were beginning to understand that humanity wasn't just another spacefaring race. They were something entirely new. "We have one final presentation," the Admiral said, his hand hovering over the controls. "If you're ready, we'd like to show you our latest breakthrough in defensive technology." The council chair's antenna twitched nervously. "There's more." "Oh yes," Alice said with a small smile. "What you've seen so far, that's just the beginning. Wait until you see what we can do when we really try." The hologram began to change again, and Laura settled in to watch. The best part was yet to come, and she couldn't wait to see their reactions to humanity's latest achievement. After all, if they thought adaptive shields were impressive, wait until they saw what happened when human ships worked together. The war room had grown unusually quiet. After 4 hours of demonstrations and explanations, the council members sat in stunned silence. The final presentation had ended moments ago, showing how a fleet of human ships could work together to create a defensive network that was practically unbreakable. Council Chair Xerox rose from her seat, her insectoid form casting long shadows in the holographic light. "We must discuss what we have seen," she announced. "The implications are significant." Laura Mitchell stood quietly at her post, watching as the council members huddled together in small groups. Their translators were turned off, allowing them to speak privately in their native languages. The mix of clicks, whistles, light pulses, and chemical signals filled the room. Ambassador Catherine Mills chose this moment to enter the chamber. She walked confidently to the center of the room, her silver hair gleaming under the lights. As Earth's senior diplomat to the Galactic Council, she had waited for this exact moment to make her appearance. "Honored council members," Catherine said, her voice calm and measured. "I believe it's time we discuss how we move forward together." The private conversation stopped. All attention turned to the human ambassador. Xyrex's antenna twitched thoughtfully. "Move forward. Your species has just demonstrated technology that changes everything we thought we knew about physics, space travel, and defensive capabilities." "Yes," Catherine smiled. "And we're prepared to share some of it." The room erupted in surprised exclamations. The Xylaxian representative's tentacles waved wildly. "Share? You would share such advanced technology?" "Under certain conditions," Catherine replied. She gestured, and a new hologram appeared, showing a proposed cooperation agreement. "We believe in working together for the benefit of all." Admiral Grant, who had remained in the room, stepped forward. "Our ships can protect not just themselves, but entire regions of space. Imagine what we could do if we worked together." The Grant representative pulsed rapidly. "Your defensive networks could be extended to protect trade routes, colonies, even entire solar systems." "Exactly," Catherine nodded. "But more importantly, we could share our research methods, our way of thinking. The real advantage humans have isn't just our technology. It's how we develop it." Senior analyst Crickstall, who had been quiet for some time, spoke up. "The competitive development model you use, it produces results far faster than our traditional approaches." "And that's just the beginning," Mary Patterson added from her position near the technical displays. "We've barely scratched the surface of what's possible when dimensional technology and gravity control are combined." The council members began talking excitedly among themselves again. The fear and concern from earlier had been replaced by interest and hope. Council Chair Xyrax raised all 4 of her arms for silence. "We must make a formal decision," she announced. "This technology, these capabilities, they cannot be ignored." She turned to face the other council members. "I propose we classify human technological advancement as a Class A phenomenon, requiring immediate cooperation rather than containment." The room grew quiet again. A Class A classification was the highest priority the Council could assign to any discovery or development. It meant that understanding and working with humans would become the top priority for all member species. "I second the proposal," the Xylaxian representative said, their tentacles moving in formal patterns of agreement. One by one, the other council members indicated their support. The vote was unanimous. Catherine smiled warmly. "Earth welcomes this decision," she said. "We have prepared detailed proposals for how we can begin working together." She brought up new displays showing various cooperation initiatives, joint research projects, defensive partnerships, educational exchanges. The possibilities seemed endless. But Laura spoke up from her position. "We want to be clear about something. Earth will maintain certain technological advantages, not out of distrust, but out of responsibility." Admiral Grant nodded. "Some of our most advanced capabilities must remain classified, at least for now. We believe in sharing knowledge, but we also believe in maintaining peace through strength. The council members seemed to understand. They had seen enough of human capabilities to know that if Earth wanted to conquer the galaxy, they probably could. The fact that humans instead wanted to cooperate and share their knowledge said a lot about their character. "We accept these terms," Xyrox announced formally. "The Galactic Council hereby recognizes Earth as a Class A technological civilization and welcomes closer cooperation." Catherine stepped forward to complete the formal acceptance, but before she could speak, alarms began blaring throughout the chamber. Crickstall rushed to his control panel. "Multiple ships just appeared at the edge of the system," he reported urgently. "They're not responding to hails and are moving fast." The council members looked worried, but Laura and Catherine exchanged calm glances. Admiral Grant simply smiled. "Would you like a live demonstration of what happens when someone threatens a space protected by human ships?" he asked quietly. The council watched in amazement as 3 human vessels suddenly slipped into view around the approaching ships. The defensive network they had just been shown in simulations was about to be demonstrated in real life. "Don't worry," Catherine assured the council. "Our ships will handle this peacefully, but effectively." As the situation unfolded, Laura couldn't help but smile. This unexpected incident would probably do more to convince the Council of Humanity's capabilities than all their careful presentations. After all, seeing was believing, and they were about to see exactly why humanity had become such a powerful force in the galaxy in such a short time. The future was about to change for everyone, and Earth was leading the way, not through conquest or intimidation, but through innovation, cooperation, and the uniquely human ability to do what everyone else thought was impossible. As the defensive network activated around the unknown ships, casting a beautiful blue glow across space, Laura thought about how far humanity had come. From their first tentative steps into space to becoming a Class A civilization in less than 2 centuries. The best part was, they were just getting started.